All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me. I do expect a few people to, kind of be stragglers and joining us a few minutes late. So I'll do some introductions off the top, and then we can dive into the workshop. So again, thank you for coming on up. We are talking about accessibility and inclusivity in digital marketing. Okay, so hopefully you're in the right room. The room is just down the hall if you need a chance to do that. So let's dive right in. So hello, nice to meet you all. My name is TJ Kelly. I'm a digital marketing strategist with 3 Media Web, all our team in our cool blue quarter zips over here. We are one of the co-sponsors of today's event, and I was thrilled for the opportunity to come and host a workshop for you all. So real quick, one of our bosses told me that I had to introduce the company before we could talk about anything else. So 3 Media Web is a digital marketing agency in Hudson, Mass. We also do web design and development, hosting and support, and of course digital marketing. So if you're ever in the market for those services, give us a call. Happy to help. So today we're talking about 2 topics related to digital marketing and accessibility. We're going to talk about the why. I think most people in the room should be fairly familiar already with why we talk about this and why it's important. We'll go over that real briefly, and then we'll go into the how. I want today to be fairly actionable for everybody to get some really useful kind of tactics on this. That's what we're here to do. So far, so good. Excellent. So first, the why. We'll recap this real briefly, the motivation behind all of this. So all of the accessibility discussion kind of revolves around abilities and barriers to certain functionality, certain features or options. So today I want to focus on visual and auditory abilities and barriers. This of course is by no means an exhaustive list of barriers to functionality and options. Even the WCAG focuses on several others that I'm excluding for today. And I want to talk about why that is, why I'm focusing on visual and auditory barriers and abilities. And the reason for that is in digital marketing, in 2019 and beyond, so much of the work that we do happens off of your website. Right, so there are other workshops and talks today discussing how to make your website ADA compliant or other kind of features along those lines. So I wanted to focus on everything that happens off of your website. So I'm going to be talking about the major social platforms. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list either. There are a whole bunch of them that I don't have time to cover all of them. So I picked a sampling of some of the major ones. And if you notice, I'm sure this doesn't come as a surprise, all of this is built around audio and visual content with text added in to some degree. And of course that plays the biggest, has the biggest impact on visual and auditory barriers. So that is why I'm focusing on those 2 barriers for the day. So let's talk about content and content formats. On all these networks and all, a good majority of this marketing, we're talking about audio content in the form of music or podcast or something like that. We're talking about graphics, just Instagram posts if you want, an example, photos to Facebook, that kind of thing. And of course, videos on YouTube and everywhere else. And I'm here to tell you that text needs to be the foundation that comes underneath and before all of these other content formats. Too often we see it added almost as an afterthought. And part of what I want to help convince everybody of and remind everyone of is that it should not be an afterthought. It should be foundational. So before we move on to too many actionable things here, quick audience participation moment. I would love to throw that one out to the audience. Why is it that I'm recommending this be foundational and precede all of the others? Anyone know why text matters so much? This shouldn't be too big of a mystery, I would think. But any volunteers? Anybody brave enough to raise the hand? Yes.
It's the lowest fidelity way to work through the goal of the content.
Okay, I like that. It's an easy way to start, right? Anything else? For me, the real difference is that it's a connector, right? We can translate between content formats through text, right? Screen readers are a really good example of this. Even Braille devices, if have a real hard time translating from something that's purely visual, say graphic, but with alt text and things like that that are text-based, it's much easier to sort of translate into something like Braille or another format. Right? So I would argue that no matter what content you're about to put out and what format that content is in, a podcast, interview, a video, whatever it is, that you start with a written document, and it could just be as simple as an outline planning your interview questions or something along those lines, maybe a quick little blurb underneath all of those questions, and voila, you have yourself both talking points for this interview and a really good starting point for a text-based, not quite transcript, but document upon which all of your translation and other kind of formats can be based. Right? Questions on that? Anything like that? All right. So let's dive into some of the how, some of the more actionable kind of takeaways here. So, if you remember this slide, what I'd like to do is walk through each of these platforms and networks and look at their currently available accessibility features and options, and kind of walk through some of that. We'll do a little bit of live play-by-play here. If you've got phones and laptops, whatever, with you, we can just do that live. So let's dive right in. It's okay to be on your phone right now. I'd love if everybody could take out their smart device if you have one, and we'll start with Instagram. If you don't have the Instagram app, feel free to download it, though it's not required. Of course, you could just watch and follow along and see what we have on offer. So I'll wait a second while everybody fires up their favorite social media app. At least I hope it's your favorite. It's my favorite. So it is okay to be on your phone, I promise. Don't be offended. All right, so feel free to follow along. So take a quick photo of the room, of the table, of your paper, your notes in front of you, of me if you like, whatever you'd like to take a quick photo of, our scenic harbor views. Feel free to tag me if you want to. And when you go to share that, before you hit the post or the publish button, or share, whatever the word is, share there, you should notice that down the very bottom, you have advanced settings. So tap that, expand that option, please. And under there, you should see write alt text. So go ahead and add some alt text. When you do that, you have the opportunity to add whatever custom text you would like. You'll notice that it limits you to 100 characters. I think it is on Instagram. Yeah, 100. Somewhere around that number, if I have my numbers right. And the reason for that is much like your website and an alt tag on a regular image embedded on WordPress post or something. The alt text is not meant to be a paragraph. They're on HTML. There's long description for that. Instagram is essentially saying use your caption for your paragraph. Use the alt text for maybe a sentence or two, describing the major takeaways of the image. Right? If you are a sighted user and you have no challenges viewing that image by itself, what is the memory you want your users or your fans and followers to walk away with? What from this image should they remember? That's how you can start your alt text. Use that as your inspiration for what to write, and do be brief. Yes?
Question, how do you know, because I've used alt text before on Instagram, and I have done longer ones, and it never cut me off. How does it tell you?
That's a good question. I don't know. If they're not cutting you off, I would say great. Let's use what's available. Honestly, I think that the going recommendation, kind of the convention, is to be short. But if they're not, Twitter style, providing a hard cutoff limit, great. Let's use what we have. Yes.
Just to add to that, I think the rule of thumb is about 130 characters. Is I think the norm.
Sure. Perfect. Keep Twitter in mind, I would say. So, in doing some research and kind of browsing around and looking for conventions and use cases with accessibility on Instagram specifically, found that there is kind of I might call it a subgroup, a group of users on Instagram who, in addition to alt text, will also use the hashtag accessibility or things like it, and provide yet another kind of alt text version. So in this case, there were actually almost two captions here. There's the one that Kim Owens here is a friend of ours. Says, I found my cat sleeping and snuggling, and that's kind of cute. But then there's the accessibility description below that. A big, long hair, white and gray mane coon cat, etc. More of a description. So what I like best about this unofficial accessibility method is the use of a hashtag is another way to take advantage of some of these social media functions already built in. Communities can rally around this. People can find and discover each other and new content, and it uses the functions that are already built into Instagram. Yes?
You're putting that in the alt text.
In this case, this user is putting it directly in the caption.
Right.
So there's an alt text that she's using, and she adds to that by adding a second accessibility hashtag. Okay. What other questions do we have on Instagram so far? So far, so good? Excellent. All right, so that's the images. Obviously, on Instagram, there's also video content. So, not much we can do on Instagram on video. There is currently no way to add a subtitle or a caption, field and that kind of added content onto a video on Instagram. And in fact, if you Google this, as I did, you'll find that 3Play Media are the ones who are ranking first for this description, explaining that currently there's no way to do this. So credit to the 3Play team, nice work. Sadly, it takes companies like 3Play Media to call Instagram out on this fact and say, listen, we need more, more functions in this. I know, I agree. So, no official way to do that on videos at the moment. If you want to have a text, laid over your image, or excuse me, your video on Instagram, it has to be burned in, if you will, or edited in Final Cut Pro or iMovie or one of those, and you can do your editing and post it that way. Now the trouble is, I don't know too many people who are taking cute cat videos on a Saturday morning and then importing into iMovie, adding some captions, and then uploading to Instagram. It kind of breaks. All right, so on to Facebook. With Facebook, I would ask that you actually get out a laptop if you've got one with you and you want to play along. Problem with this is that it cannot be done on Facebook Mobile. There is no way to be adding alt text to your images on Facebook Mobile when you're posting them straight to your news feed or your timeline, whatever Facebook is calling it this week. So on your laptops, if you're willing to play along here, you can upload any photo you like, and when you do that, you'll see you get this edit photo option. Right, before you hit the publish button, you can hover over that little preview thumbnail, and of course you can tag people, as we've all been doing however many years we've been able to do that on Facebook. And recently, maybe a couple years ago, they rolled out a few other options, and the alt text is a recent addition. All right, so when you click on that edit photo option, you'll be able to see a few options here, and hopefully your image is also my face, but if not, other images work too. And the alt text is in there towards the bottom. You can see the giant arrow there. And so when you go to add that in, you'll notice that specifically on Facebook, they have provided their interpretation of what's in your image. They are giving you some alt text already. They're using artificial intelligence to try to come up with what's in the photo. I think that's a great start. They are rolling this out to Instagram also, given of course that's the same ownership and similar technology. It's not quite as robust on Instagram as it is on Facebook. So they're sort of guessing, with a machine learning sort of way, of what's in the alt text, but it's not always right. So don't rely on that only. When I uploaded this photo, I got 2 people. So far, I think I'm still only just one. And including TJ Kelly, people smiling, beard close up. So it reads really well. You might want to get in there and edit that out a little bit and explain what else you'd like people to know. Yes?
So define again how alt text functions across this platform.
Sure, so the alt in this case stands for alternative, and it is basically just a replacement of the photo. If you can't see the photo, you're using a screen reader or something like that.
Okay,
it's a replacement for the photo. Good question. So on mobile, you do have the option to hit edit, you can see there, but you don't get the alt text functions, sadly. So there's no way to do this on at least iOS. To be honest, I don't have an Android device, but I didn't double check this. So please correct me if I'm wrong on Android. I would love to be wrong on this. The good news is you can add it retroactively. Once the image has been posted to your timeline, you, or maybe if you're at an event like Access with Replay Media here, you're at an event, you snap that photo on Facebook, maybe somebody back at the office is working today and has their laptop, they can go in and edit this for you, or of course you could do it later when you have access to the laptop. The trouble is, it's a little hard to find where to make this edit. If you go and click on what you would think is the edit post options there, you're not going to find alt text in there. You have to go to the permalink of that post. Usually I do that anyway by clicking on the date or time that it was posted. It will take you directly to the individual URL for that piece of content. If I click on 31 minutes there, for example, it'll take me to the URL. Once you're on that page, it's hidden, and it's like they're trying to make it hard to find. But way down here, there are some subtle options down the bottom, and in there, you'll find change alt text. So it is not exactly easy, but it is possible. So at least some baby steps in the right direction for editing alt text. Yes?
I just wanted to say also, because I have my Instagram directly post to my Facebook, if you add alt text to your Instagram, it doesn't transfer to Facebook, so you have to also add it there.
Good to know, thank you. That's an important tip, so do it twice. I appreciate it, thank you. Excellent. So that's Facebook images. We can move on to Facebook video. Is there anything else to recap on images before we do so? Everybody's happy with that? Excellent. All right. So obviously, you want, and when you go into edit it, you will see these automatically generated subtitles. Much like the alt text, it is not always right. Plenty of edits we can make in there, but it is a nice start. So you have a few options. It will auto-transcribe for you, or you could manually transcribe that yourself and go time code, second by second, and edit the words that are being said in that moment of the video. If you've ever done that, you'll know it is very tedious. It's nice to have that level of control, but man, does it take a while to get all of that done. As a better option, you could upload your own subrip subtitle file, an SRT file, and of course you could get 3Play Media to generate that transcript for you, and of course other companies out there. You could do your own if you wanted to. You can open up a text editor and make your own SRT file. That is also very tedious. Thank you, 3Play, for saving us that time. And then one question I get a lot is, should I make my transcripts or my subtitles verbatim, exactly what is said in the video? By and large, the answer to that is no. If you have a scripted piece of dialogue, if you're uploading a sitcom or something, and it is written in with the appropriate ums and ahs and audience laughter, or if you're doing a live read of like a sports broadcast or news broadcast, that kind of thing, in those cases, then verbatim does make some sense. However, if you have an event like this one or an interview, a podcast type thing, then I would edit that out a little bit so you can remove some of the repetitive bits and make it a little easier to read and listen to. So take out the ums. If you ever go and listen to audio with all the ums left in it, if you have one of those raw, unedited podcasts or something, for me anyway, they're very hard to listen to, so I would recommend take out the ums. So that's Facebook video. Twitter time. Good on Facebook? Everybody's happy there? Okay. Yes?
Just check on Android, you can edit alt text.
Excellent. Thank you. That's good to know. It's possible that I'm wrong on the iOS and never found it. I hope so, but there it is. Confirmation. Thank you. So that's odd. Honestly, I don't know why that would be the case, but good to know that Android offers the option. So if there are people in the room still using Twitter, congratulations. Let's talk about that real fast. Is there anybody that has added alt text to an image on Twitter before? Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. A few people. Very good. So if you've done this on desktop, you'll recognize this interface. Once you upload your photo before you tweet it out, there is a tiny little edit button in the top right corner. Click on your tiny little edit button, and you'll see alt along with cropping and a few other options to edit the actual photo. Click on the alt, and you get the opportunity to provide a description. Fairly small, but that alt text says that Charlie Day went to college in my hometown. That is a fact. Coincidence? I think not. And you can also do this one on mobile, so credit to Twitter for making this a little more accessible, a little easier to do. Here's what it looks like in the iOS interface anyway. Add a description. And then it is displayed for your review, I suppose, once you go to actually tweet that out. That is not the case on desktop. They don't show you on desktop what it's going to look like once it's tweeted or once it's, what it reads at, but it does show that way on mobile. And then it disappears. Ostensibly, that's because it's accessible by screen reader or some other assistive technology device. Natively in the iOS app, it does not display visually anyway. So with your screen reader, text reader type apps, they might read that out. Will read that out. Okay. So that is images on Twitter. And video on Twitter gets the good old fail whale. Anybody a Twitter OG and remember the fail whale from however many years ago? So they have retired the fail whale, unfortunately, but this used to appear when Twitter's servers would go down or be over capacity or something, and the Twitter community nicknamed it the fail whale. They don't do it anymore, sadly. I was sorry to see it go. But the reason I put it here is there is no way currently to add subtitles and captions, that kind of thing, to your Twitter videos, with an important exception, but by and large for your typical user, there's no way to do it. The exception is, actually there are three of them. It's possible difficult if you're in the Twitter's media studio, which is essentially like enterprise level media company partners. I'm thinking ESPN and NBC News here, somebody who's big level. It is invite only. I have never met anybody who is a part of the media studio. Is anybody in this room working with a company that's part of the Twitter media studio? No. Okay. I know the NFL and the NBA partner with Twitter, so I imagine that it's big corporations like that. So they can add their subtitles. If you wanted to upload your video by way of Twitter's API, you could include an SRT file with that. Once again, I don't know anybody who's taking a picture of the Boston Harbor and then going over the computer and uploading by way of the API, but I suppose if you wanted to, you could. And then lastly, if you were running ads on Twitter, you would have the option to put in subtitles or captions. But those are the only three ways that you can add subtitles on Twitter. So some room for improvement there. Regular users are evidently left out a little bit on those captions. Gaps like this one, the inability to provide the captions here on videos, have given rise to a few add-ons or kind of other places to go to help with accessibility, with Twitter especially. Twitter is famously open with their data and their API, so there's a lot of other third-party kind of add-on services that will hook into that and display it in different ways. So this Easy Chirp is one of them. Is there anybody who has used EasyChirp or some other, more accessible version of Twitter? Anybody have experience with that? No? So this one does not help with video, unfortunately, but what it does have, all these accessibility features over here, I consider those to be valuable lessons for publishers, marketers, businesses that are trying to leverage accessibility, because if the features are important to the accessibility community, those who rely on these technologies, then they should be important to us too, as publishers. So I know that's a very small, very long list. I don't expect everybody to read it today. Quick little synopsis of it. We're talking about things like long descriptions, keyboard functionality, being able to navigate through. This is a lot of stuff you would need on your own website, right? Keyboard navigation, that kind of thing. A simple layout, simplified without all the noise, visual and otherwise. Properly formatted headings are a big one, and then Ajax alerts. Does everyone know what Ajax is? No, Ajax is a JavaScript-based technology that runs on websites, and it runs on nearly all of them these days. And essentially, it can feed information to a server or pull information from that server in real time. So the page you're viewing will just edit before your eyes without needing a page refresh. It's ubiquitous at this point. However, if you are hard of vision or some other restrictions to your ability to observe or use that functionality, you might not know that the page has just refreshed before your eyes. So an alert on the fact that there was an Ajax function that just happened, is crucial in a lot of those cases.
So again, what does this enable you to add?
In this case, it's not actually adding much of anything to Twitter. It's another way for users to consume information on Twitter and publish there too. But it unfortunately does not improve the quality of videos on Twitter or anything like that. For that, we still have to rely on Twitter's native functionality.
Okay.
All right. On to the YouTubes. So this one is also computer only. You'll notice when you go to upload a video on YouTube that very similar to Facebook, it will auto-generate some subtitles or captions for you. It is easily accessible in the old version of YouTube's Creator Studio. It is actually accessible in the new version too, though I consider it a little bit harder to find. If you want to navigate the interface, they both do work, but I always like to switch back to the old interface because I find it a little easier to find and leverage that way. So you provide it with the subtitles and closed caption option. Like I said, they do provide their own kind of auto-generated subtitles for you, and like Facebook, they need some editing. They are far from perfect. You have the option to upload an SRT file, just like Facebook. And of course, you could manually transcribe if you want to. You can do different languages, which is a big part of the reason we would transcribe at all. So you can do that manually. And you can see, just like on Facebook, you have the interface with time codes. In these 3 seconds, this one sentence is uttered, and you can edit that with punctuation and all the others. I would consider these to be better than nothing, but that's about as good as I'm willing to, as much credit as I'm going to give it. It's better than zero, but there's a lot of room to improve. So please do edit those, at least make them a little more readable. Punctuation is a big part of that. If it sounds like one giant run-on sentence, it's difficult to listen to. At the very least, add a period or question mark now and then. Right. Technically, there are images on YouTube, but I got nothing. They don't offer any way to provide extra information or alt text. I believe the reason for that is the alt text automatically added to those images is just the title of the video you're about to tap on and go watch. Right, so there is technically no way to add a custom alt text. That might not be necessary if all of it is just a link into the video anyway, though I don't consider myself an expert on what is necessary for alt text and things like that. So it's worth at least investigating. Hopefully someday we'll get some better options. Onto LinkedIn for business. LinkedIn has a little bit of catch up to do. They do offer right up front an easy way to add alt text, which is nice. It's right in your face anytime you upload an image. The option is right there. Similar to Instagram and some of the others, they are limiting your alt text to 120 characters, but at least it is very easy to add. Once you upload a video to LinkedIn, which they are still relatively new to the video game. At this point, it's been probably a couple of years, but they're not nearly as robust in it the way Facebook and YouTube are. I think we're still learning some lessons. So you can edit the video and upload an SRT file, this subtitle file, but that is your only option. There is no automatically generated time code based, editable option the way Facebook and YouTube have. So yet another opportunity to call your friends at 3Play and get a custom transcript made and upload it there. So that's video on LinkedIn and images. Anything else on LinkedIn? These last ones are a little shorter, I'm sure you can tell. And then lastly, for me anyway, would be Pinterest. So Pinterest, if you're familiar with how the app works at all, it takes an image from some other website, copies it over to their own Pinterest servers, and then attaches some other data to that image, which is all designed to direct users back to the source web page anyway. That is the whole point of what Pinterest does. You can collect all those things and eventually go back to the source. So as a result of that kind of convention and use case, they are making the alt text of their images match the title of the page from which that image came. All right. So if you had your homepage, 3playmedia.com, and it said text transcription company, that kind of thing, and you shared an image from 3Play's homepage, the alt text would say 3Play Media, text transcription company, and it would match that exactly. Now, there are add-ons and like WordPress plugins and that kind of thing that you can add to your website that allow you the option to sort of trick Pinterest into giving a different alt text. Once it's in there, however, you can't edit it. Once it gets moved over and pinned onto the Pinterest servers, you can't edit it. But at the very least, you have the option to add something different than just the page title. Source. And there is no video subtitling options provided by Pinterest. They are brand new to video. They just rolled out video pins pretty recently. So I hope that that's coming. I expect we're learning lessons there and adding functionality. But as it stands today, no way to add video subtitles or captions on Pinterest. Okay? It's dog food time. If you ever heard the phrase, you gotta eat your own dog food? While making this slideshow for you, I said it would be irresponsible of me not to, walk this walk in addition to standing up here and talking the talk. So, if you remember this slide from the top of the presentation, I learned that Google Slides has the option to provide alt text and a number of other accessibility features. So I would love for somebody to go and download this presentation and fact check me, but I believe, if I got my numbers right, that I hit every image on here with some alt text, and kind of walk the walk on that and make sure that I go through the process of adding a written description to accompany every bit of visual in there. All right. So this is, for example, what that looks like in alt text. And then there are some other settings and options in there. On the right-hand side here, the settings that you can make available to people who are, downloading and viewing your Google Slides. On the right-hand side here, these are the options if you needed to take advantage of any of these, accessibility add-ons or functionality. That's what that looks like. There are a number of options, of course, but credit to Google for putting their money where their mouth is and making this, a truly close to fully accessible platform. All right. So where to add your accessibility text? You don't have to read the whole list. You can basically skip to the bottom one, just about everywhere. Please try to put that in as many places as possible. And I do mean text specifically, as we talked about in the beginning. All right, now this is, of course, by no means an exhaustive list of social platforms. I've run this presentation a few times for a few different audiences, and every time people tell me there are some on there that don't even exist anymore, or I'm missing some major ones. How could you forget? I'm not an expert on social platforms, but this is hopefully a representative list of all of the places and opportunities you have. I have found that Snapchat is one of the most difficult ones to work with in this case, so hopefully they can improve their technology as well. Anybody have any suggestions on things I should add to this list, by the way? This is one of my favorite things to hear. No? All right, not today. That's all right. We'll get there next time. So please remember that access is not an afterthought. Access is a matter of options and providing routes into whatever your content is, and that should not be an afterthought. That should be at the foundation, the core of everything we publish as a marketer. This presentation and an accompanying blog post, since I did have to start with a written version, is available at this web URL if you'd like to go and download it. Those are ones in the URL there. However, it does work with else. We made sure it would be either one. So please go to 3mediaweb.com/ally to see the blog post and download. It's on SlideShare, it's on YouTube, it's everywhere. Google Slides, of course. So please share that far and wide. We'd love to have that shown out to the world. And thank you very much. Here's where you can find me if you'd like to tweet at me or on Instagram. I think that I have DJ Kelly on just about all the platforms. So we'd love to hear from you. And my favorite question of every talk that I give or workshop is, what did you learn? What's the one thing you're walking out of this room, taking back to the office and the rest of your team? I would love to hear what some folks in this room are taking back into their team. Yes?
Text should be the foundation.
Thank you. I like that one. Excellent. Text is the foundation. Any others? Free play team, you guys have anything that you're taking back to yours?
Yeah, definitely making the text the focus. Another thing too is when you're using images with text overlay, like not to do too much text overlay because the screen reader can't read that text, and then making sure that that text goes to the alt text.
Yes. Good. How about my colleagues over in the 3 Media Web?
Well, this is the third time.
Yeah. So what's your takeaway, Mike?
That you're devastating.
My wife agrees. Any other takeaways from today, or yes?
That the function of alt text is slightly different on Pinterest. We've got most of the other things down, but
Yes.
just thinking about how to leverage that better,
Yes.
that platform better.
Yeah, and if that platform, if Pinterest is a big part of your market and your business, you might want to look into some of these options to customize that alt text. And I say that because, you know, as an SEO nerd resident, the title text of a page is rarely, if ever, written with, you know, alternative text and accessibility in mind. So if that's where the alt text is coming from, there's a potential gap there. I learned in kind of my old days as a web developer that it's good practice to make your alt text a complete sentence, right? Just like you add punctuation to your subtitles in your videos, why not do that in the alt text as well? It's going to be read down, you know, as if it were a sentence on the page. So if all the other ones get to be full sentences, it makes sense for the alt text to be as well. At the very least, I would add a period at the end of it just so the screen reader knows to stop, pause for a second, and move on. So the same thing would be true then if you wanted to customize your Pinterest alt text. I like that. Any others? Questions or follow-ups? Yes.
Do you know if I've looked around a bit and audio description seems to be also challenging to add to video. Do you know of any solutions or workarounds or best practices for having?
As for best practices, I don't know about that, honestly, but I have found that in most cases that depends on the device or the application itself that is providing the audio readout. And in most cases, that's coming directly from the text, you know, transcription or subtitle. And again, preparing for this and a part of the work that 3 Media Web does in the last couple of years, making websites more accessible and getting into the, you know, the accessibility world more full time. Some of the people I have spoken to who are, you know, accessibility activists on Twitter, that kind of thing, who live in this world every day. One of the questions I had was, which is better for you if you're vision impaired and you want to listen to this content? Would you rather a screen reader reading through a text transcript or, you know, a text blog post or something, or would you rather have the author or some voice actor or something record an audio version that you can just hit play and get it kind of straight from the source? And without fail, they all said, give me the screen reader. I want the screen reader every time because I listen to it 4 times faster than anybody ever speaks. And I can control settings, I can skip all that stuff that you can't do with, say, an MP3. So for that, I took, okay, text is confirmed as the foundation for me. So for audio descriptions, I go back to the text. I don't consider myself an expert if that's what everybody is doing or should be doing, but I don't have to answer your question. It's my take anyway.
It's more like if you have a video that has a lot of images in it, you're using audio description to make that inaccessible.
I see. So you would have a voiceover describing what's in the image. I see. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I start with a written version, and, you know, with all the images, for example, from my slides here, I'll have a paragraph or 2 or 5 describing what the concepts are around that, and then I would use that to generate the audio description. Certainly not the only way. Yes.
I don't know with social media because I don't do a lot of video on social media, but generally on the web as best practice, having a second video is the way your best option.
I like that, 2 separate videos.
Yeah.
That would be my answer.
Because you could have a whole video that is completely silent, but you still need to convey that to the floor.
Sure.
Yeah, there's an example that we've actually been sharing around our office where Pixar has 2 versions of the Frozen promo.
Yes.
That's like conceptually made it make sense to the most people.
So how the 2 versions?
Because it's a lot of slapstick comedy in the
Yep.
promo, it's very visual, there's grunts and laughs.
Yep.
So you can watch that without any, or you can watch a second version where there's a voice that's actually kind of integrated into the tone of the video that's saying, Olaf slides across the ice. And that's kind of describing the slapstick.
In a world.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Netflix is working on audio describing all of their videos, so you can, if you have Netflix, you can watch videos with audio description to see what that looks like. Because basically, you also are trying not to talk over dialogue with your audio. There's a lot of standards you need to meet, and so watching a video on Netflix is a good start for that as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm actually from Freeplay Media, and I just wanted to mention the DCMP, which is the Described Captioned Media Program. On their website, they have a lot of best practices for audio description, and I also wanted to mention that we do provide audio description, but more so than that, we have a lot of resources on our website, a lot of free resources. If you're interested in finding out more about some of the best practices and some of the different kind of DIY options or how it works with different there.
And you said that was called DCMP?
Yeah, I think it's the described and captioned program.
Thank you. And, honestly, I was blown away and impressed at how many valuable resources 3Play offers already. You saw several screenshots in there in my talk, and that was on purpose. It's excellent information, so thank you, everybody.
Website.
That's that side of the house. So that's all I have for today, so thank you very much for coming. I would love to stick around and chat, or we can walk around and post things to Facebook and Instagram if you'd like to, or of course feel free to fill them out. So that's what I have. Thank you. Stop my Facebook Live video.